Yours truly, Brevin Thompson, here to continue season 2 of my annual Halloween special, and of course I'll be talking about Carrie. Brian De Palma's direction in this film is great, and I love his work on Scarface, and it's easily one of my favorite crime movies, but number one for me is Pulp Fiction. Nothing can top Pulp Fiction. It's still number one on my list, but I don't know, maybe someday something will top it, but for me, nothing can top Pulp Fiction. It is that damn good. Quick side note, done. But Brian De Palma's direction for this film is great, and for this being the first Stephen King adaptation, it's great to this day. And this is one of my top 10 favorite Stephen King adaptations. If I had to make a list, Carrie would definitely be on that list. And out of all of the adaptations of Carrie, the one from the 70s is easily the best version. There was, of course, a sequel to this movie, which was shit. There was a 2002 television film, I believe, which I haven't seen. And, of course, there's the 2013 remake, which I watched before I first watched this movie. I might have to do a comparison video to determine, without a doubt, I still believe the original is the best, because the original, so far nothing has managed to top what this did, because everything about this movie, it works. Not only as a good horror film or a great Stephen King film, but as a good film in general. Because, this is easily one of my favorite horror films, and it's, like I already mentioned, it's one of my favorite it's one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, and there's nothing ever gonna be anything like this version of Carrie. If they make another reboot, I'd be like, just stop. We just need the original. We don't need anything more. I love this one. I always will, and nothing can be like this. Yeah. So, in case you haven't, seen this movie, this will, of course, contain spoilers. And I'll go over, certain few differences between what happens in the film and what happens in the novel. So, the story for this film mostly revolves around Carrie White. She's a shy, unpopular girl in high school. She's picked on constantly, she's bullied, and pretty much everybody in her school treats her pretty much like shit. And it goes beyond that when she's having her first period, and at first, she believes that she's bleeding to death, because, she doesn't really know what's happening to her. Like I said, it's her first period. And she goes to her fellow students, and she's freaking out and screaming because she doesn't know what's happening to her. And instead of helping her, they just instead throw towels and tampons at her, just chanting, "Plug it up! Plug it up!" And of course, their gym teacher, Miss Collins, of course, hears the commotion and breaks it up and tries to calm Carrie down. While in the process, a light bulb explodes, and it almost implicates that Carrie has some sort of supernatural power, which I will get to later and throughout this review. And while she's being dismissed from school, the principal repeatedly, while apologizing for what happened because of the incident, he repeatedly mispronounces her name as Cassie. Of course, Carrie freaks out and being like, "It's Carrie!" and flips the ashtray over. While she's staring at it, also. And while she's walking back home, a kid on his bike just keeps teasing Carrie by saying, "Creepy Carrie, creepy Carrie," and she of course pushes him off his bike just by staring at him. Well, of course she has telekinesis, but she doesn't at first know what's happening to her, but she will eventually find out what's happened to her later throughout and sometime in the middle of the movie. But but the true tormentor for her is, of course, her mother, because I mean, she's a schizophrenic and also a religious fanatic. I mean, at first, when she hears about her daughter having her first period, she views this as a sin, and she beats Carrie with like a small Bible and locks her up in a prayer closet and forces her to beg for forgiveness, because anything, well, mostly related to women or anything, her mother mostly views as a sin, and you can already tell that this woman is batshit crazy, and it shows throughout the movie. It shows, and this one shot I really like when Carrie, once she leaves the prayer closet, she stares at herself in the mirror, and it like kind of like the glass kind of bends back and forth just a little tad bit, and the glass breaks, and the music for that one scene, I mean, there are some moments there are a few moments of music where it almost reminded me a bit of Psycho, but if you listen close enough, you can tell that it almost sounds like the music that you can hear from Psycho, especially when it comes to like one specific scene, and you can tell that it sounds like the music from Psycho that you would hear from the shower scene. But I mean, like I said, if you watch the film, you can tell. But the film score I thought was really good. I mean, it feels like art. That's the best way I can describe the score for this film. It's like art. So Miss Collins gathers up all the students that tormented Carrie and forces them to go through like a boot camp detention. And well, she originally wanted them to have like a 3-day suspension and refusal of their prom tickets, but instead, I mean, they were gonna have a 1 week's detention. But one of the girls, Chris, who's played by Nancy Allen, who you might remember in RoboCop as Ann Lewis, RoboCop's partner. So yeah, she's in this movie. So she skips the detention and, of course, is banned from the prom. She feels like she didn't do anything wrong. I mean, she even flat out says it in the remake. She doesn't really say that she did anything wrong. Well, she clearly did. I mean, just bullying a girl, especially when she had her first period and she was freaking out and she doesn't know what's happening to her. So, yeah, so that's a really shitty thing to do. I mean, even Miss Collins flat out said that it was a shitty thing for her to do. So there you have it. And while the girls are having their detention, Carrie is at a library trying to figure out what type of power she might possess, and it's of course telekinesis. And one of the girls who that also sort of like tormented Carrie. I mean, she of course feels guilt for what she's done, and she asks her boyfriend Tommy to take Carrie to the prom because she wants to atone for what she'd done. And I like that. I like that one part of this character. This character Sue, who's played by Amy Irving. And fun fact: Amy Irving was actually married to Steven Spielberg at one point. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that, did you? Well, you do now. So anyway, further on to the review. Chris goes to her boyfriend, Billy, who's played by John Travolta, of all people. And this is like one of the early stages of his career. And I've loved John Travolta ever since I first watched Pulp Fiction. And he has like sort of ups and downs in his career. As for this movie, I give it up because, I mean, it's John Travolta in a Stephen King movie. So, yeah. As for the downs, I recently watched The Fanatic about a few weeks ago, and It was hilariously bad. I can't believe. I swear to God, the moment I rented it from Redbox and I put it on my PS4, I laughed my ass off throughout most of the movie. I was like, it was that bad. It was that bad. I don't know if it was intentional, but it was. Unintentionally hilarious, but I couldn't help it. I laughed my ass off throughout the whole movie. So yeah. Travolta does had some like ups and downs in his career, and The Fanatic was definitely one of those. And there were often hints that Travolta likes to go over the top. Battlefield Earth being a prime example of that, as well as Broken Arrow and many other movies. But one of the few highs in his career are, there's Carrie, there's Grease, Pulp Fiction, obviously, and so many few. If I had to list them all, I'd pretty much be her all day. So I don't have enough time to do that, so let's continue with the review. So anyway, Chris goes to Billy, who, like I said, is played by Travolta. So they plan to pull like a sick prank on Carrie. They, of course, fill up a bucket full of pig's blood and plan to dump it on her when she's elected as prom queen. Right when Tommy asks Carrie out to the prom, she is, of course, like extremely nervous and everything. But, of course, she eventually accepts because she wants to fit in with other people and doesn't really want to feel like a complete outcast, because she pretty much has been an outcast for pretty much most of her life. And when she tells her mother about it, of course, she views it as a sin. And she repeatedly tells Carrie to go to her closet and just pray and ask to be forgiven. But, of course, Carrie refuses, and she's like, I'm not going to take any more shit from you, and shows off her powers. And the music in that one scene where Carrie uses her powers to shut all the windows and the doors, the music sounds like the music you would hear from the shower scene in Psycho. I mean, if you listen closely enough, you can recognize that it's almost the same music as Psycho. I guarantee you, if you pay attention enough, you can recognize it. So anyway, yeah, of course, Carrie wants to go to the prom, and she makes her own dress, of course, and right when her mother sees it, she tells Carrie to burn it, and so they can be forgiven. Of course, Carrie stands up to her mother and leaves to go with Tommy. When she goes to the prom, she's, of course, very nervous, but at the same time, she's having the time of her life, because this is probably the happiest she'd been in years. And this one shot that lasts for 2 minutes, well, over 2 minutes, with Carrie and Tommy dancing, it captures that that moment of happiness you can't help but feel happy for Carrie, even knowing that it will be cut short soon because of what will happen later in the next few scenes. So right when Tommy and Carrie are elected as king and queen of the prom, of course, that's the moment when, well, right before it does happen, Sue, who snuck in to see how much of a good time Carrie is having with Tommy, she sees the rope in the bucket full of pig's blood and tries to figure out what's going on. She, of course, sees Chris, but right before she can tell anybody what she's about to do, Miss Collins spots her and then pushes her out the door. Then, well, she tried to warn them, but it was too late. Chris already pulls the rope, and the pig's blood pours all over Carrie, which of course shocks the hell out of everybody. And just like that, Carrie's moment of happiness just gone. just because of that one prank and of the pig's blood spilled all over her. I mean, she's like drenched in blood. And Tommy is, of course, very pissed. I mean, and this is one major difference in what happens in the novel, because in the film, there was one bucket full of pig's blood, while in the novel, there was actually two. One that would be for Carrie, and another that would be for Tommy. And I was always confused about what happened next, is that once the bucket hits Tommy, it's never certain that he's dead or if he was knocked out by the bucket falling on top of his head. But, I mean, in most versions, he mostly died because of the impact of the bucket. So, I mean, I guess he died because he dies in both the novel and in the remake. Like I said, I haven't seen the 2002 television film, so, yeah. I guess I could say that he's dead, so, yeah. Well, while Carrie is having, like, a complete silent psychotic breakdown, she, like, shuts all the doors with her powers, and she goes completely batshit and just... she kills everybody in the gymnasium, and it's a damn shocking scene, and it's one of the few suspenseful moments in horror history, because, I mean, it's destructive as all hell, and especially, I mean, that one stare, that, I mean, this blank expression on Carrie's face while she's doing all this destruction, it's, oh, God, damn good acting from Sissy Spacek. I will definitely give her that. And to think that she was nominated for an Oscar for this film, that nomination was very well deserved. I will give it that. It was very well deserved. So, props for that. And another major difference between what happens in the film and what happens in the novel is, like, once Carrie leaves the prom, she rains down hell on the town, and she blows up gas stations and crumbles buildings and everything. She goes full on batshit insane. But what happens in the film, I mean, she's walking about, just minding her own business, just trying to get back home. And Chris tries to run Carrie over because she witnessed all the destruction and everything. So she kills both, so Carrie kills both Chris and Billy by flipping the car over and blowing it up. And right when Carrie gets back home and washes off all the blood, we get this next scene with her and her mother, and it's that one moment right when her mother tells Carrie this sad, tragic backstory that she once had with her husband. It's that one moment where you begin to feel a bit sorry for her because her husband raped her. At first, she didn't want it to happen, but she later enjoyed it, and felt like, I mean, because she believed that Carrie was born from sin, that she wished that she had given to God when she was born, but she felt like she was weak. Then now she's wanting to make up for that by killing Carrie right then and now. And right from the get-go, right after Carrie showed off her powers, she believes that Carrie is now a satanic witch. And that's another major reason why she wants Carrie dead. But of course, Carrie defends herself and she kills her own mother. And after that one act, she completely freaks out and she starts to lose control of her powers, and the entire house crumbles down upon her. And that's the end for Carrie. And there's this dream sequence with Sue planting flowers on what remained of underneath the rubble of Carrie's old house. And she goes up to the for sale sign that's vandalized. Carrie White burns in hell. Right when she plants the flowers, she has like this bloodied arm, like just grabbing her, and she wakes up from a nightmare, just screaming and screaming and screaming. And that's a very shocking end for a horror film. So, and there's this one minor nitpick that I have with this one dream sequence. Right when, the entire dream sequence is taking place in day, but right when Sue is looking up at the sign, it almost looks like it just shifted back to day, and right when the camera comes back to Sue, it's immediately day, just like that. So that's a one minor nitpick that I have with the movie, as well as like some scenes where some moments where the music kind of resembles Psycho, but yeah. But overall, I love the performances from Sissy Spacek and many of the other great actors, and for this being a great Stephen King adaptation, and Brian De Palma's excellent work throughout this film, great cinematography and everything, it's a great Stephen King adaptation, and one that you will definitely love if you love Stephen King. So I'm going to give Carrie an A. So what are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm sorry for not doing this so soon. I meant to do that, but I had like other stuff going on, so yeah. I'll definitely be doing more episodes right before Halloween is over. So yeah, I definitely can't wait to do that. So yeah, thank you so much as always for watching. I'm looking forward to doing more episodes of my Halloween special very soon. And tomorrow I'll be concluding my series of Terminator reviews leading up to Terminator Dark Fate. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. So yeah, if you want my thoughts on old or new movies, of course, you know where to find me.